On the Spot with Lux Live, talking property, business and success in real estate.
Okay,
I think I'm actually gonna go get a logo printed soon. I actually did get the creators for our Lux Live brand logo.
Yes.
So I think I'll try and organize that this week, because this is actually like literally the perfect color.
It is, definitely. And but we'll send you, we've got some water bottles, we've got all sorts of cool stuff. So exciting times. The most important things in joining a company, a property company, is getting your logos and your brand kit right. And start dressing in the different colors. How does gold look on you?
I think it looks good. I think it's a good fit for my skin tone. So, I must say, it's been interesting being part of this team for such a short period of time, just to see how hard everyone hustles. I actually find myself needing to step up the game in order to keep all the cogs in the wheels working. So it's been good so far, I must say.
But listen, I mean, you have to step up the game because it's going into December and it's Cape Town, right?
Hundreds, yeah. And we just got started here. So we got a lot of ground to cover before all the guests get here.
Do agents actually take off in December in Cape Town?
No. I think everyone is working. They work basically right until the last day. So I personally, as an example, will work until the 23rd, 24th. I'll do viewings still, because not everyone is Christian. So I sometimes will do viewings until then. I have had some really ridiculous requests where a buyer had asked me, or it was actually a tenant looking for a rental. And they had called me at 10 o'clock at night on New Year's Eve to do a viewing, which was, I just said, sorry, buddy, I'm not coming out to do any viewings tomorrow. It's, you know what day it is. So yeah, that's been the most ridiculous thing. But for the most part, everyone's working over the holidays, for sure. But I'm sure it's the same there with you as well, isn't it?
Not as bad, though, when we have people coming from countries that don't really see December as a big holiday season. So yesterday we were dealing with an email from a German client who is arriving on the 31st and said they want to start hunting on the 1st of January until the 5th. And so it's unfortunately not going to work because everyone who is normally in Gauteng is out. So although we are in, unfortunately, the people that need to unlock their houses to show are not in. So we managed to shift it by a week. But Europeans don't really see the Christmas holidays as anything other than the 24th, 25th, and then maybe the 31st is a big thing. The 1st is kind of a normal day. So you get it, but I don't think as much as by the coast. But I mean, then we hear that no one works so much at the coast. So clearly you guys do something.
Yeah. No, I think that's the story that they tell the Joburgers so that they're scared to come down. Because I have personally, being from Joburg, I know what it's like. And I was also afraid that there wasn't going to be anything to do here and everyone was going to be super slow. But I think once you get settled in here, you realize you need to earn by grafting. So, yeah, on the holiday situation, I must say, I do remember when I was in Joburg, after I said what I said, that it's basically like a mass exodus out of Joburg over the Christmas period. I don't know if that's still the case there with you guys.
Very much so. In fact, I heard people are already leaving this weekend. Because the school, though the holidays haven't started officially, the exams are over today, basically. So I heard from quite a lot of people that they are exhausted and they are taking December off. I don't know if that means they're working wherever they are, because I don't know what leave they've got. But I guess, a lot of people are leaving. And if you can work remotely, why not? I mean, working by the beach, isn't that the dream for everyone?
Yes, I'm sure a lot of people who go to the beach are busy working.
Yeah, or say so. I was listening to a podcast and they said in the US they've invented some app that can monitor your mouse moves to see if you are indeed working from home. And then the employees then counter-invented an app that makes the mouse appear to move when they're not actually by the computer. So I think if you need to move to work, you work. If you don't, you make a plan not to.
Yeah, that's quite advanced. I've actually seen people put these primitive things together where, like, those tipping birds, they'll like use that sort of thing to actually push and pull the mouse in order to create that movement effect. Yeah. So at least they're using technology, which is cool.
Listen, in real estate, I can make my mouse move as many times as it wants to. I won't sell houses that way. So I still have to jump in my car and go and show houses.
No, for sure. Yeah, I know the price, it's a different ballgame. We have to actively be out there. So we don't have the luxury of hiding behind our laptops. So.
Yeah. How long have you been in real estate for?
So I started I've always been passionate about it. I actually remember from a young age when I used to drive into Sandton because I used to work at an accessory store, Ferrari accessory store in Sandton. And I remember driving out into the city from the traffic, and I could always visualize like a big black building that I had built standing in that area. So I've always been interested in real estate. And when I was in Joburg before I left for Cape Town, I had also flipped a lot of properties, especially in the Marussia, Joburg area. And a lot of them were people who were trying to get out of those areas. So it made sense for me to help them. And when I came down to Cape Town, it was not really my goal. I kind of ended up in real estate as a coping mechanism to get over my divorce because, I was really just around for about 2 weeks until a cousin of mine who was in the game brought it to my attention that they were looking for interns. And so I thought, sure, I've always loved the industry. Let me give it a shot. And I haven't looked back. It's literally been it's like a passion of mine now. It's actually not even work. And I think that's kind of if you're doing something, that's kind of what it needs to be. Because if you're in our industry, as you know, there's no days off. I mean, you have to be available all the time unless you've made provisions where a friend or something helps you out in the industry to take care of clients. And yourself, you've also got a rich history, eh?
That for a woman, that doesn't sound so good. It was a boring history, but
is it? Okay.
No. Look, I love it. I was talking to one of my colleagues actually the other day, and she said the exact same thing. She said, "All I want to talk about is a property, and when I go out with people, they want to talk about stuff other than work, and all I want to talk about is work. So it's actually very." It's funny, and you look around, those people that are happy to only talk about work are usually the very successful agents. And I've got several friends, obviously, over the years, and it's exactly the same. That's all you kind of want to talk about. You go out for dinner, and then you talk about this client and that house, and how did this deal go, and what went wrong, how would you have done it differently. So definitely, I think because it's so tough, and I mean, I don't know how many people you've seen come and go, but we, as a company, we have a lot of people who just see the glamour part and they see the social media posts. They look absolutely amazing, thanks to Radi. And they say, oh, okay, I see myself in these houses, showing them to people. But the whole effort that goes before, during, after, is not necessarily visible. So unless you love it so much that you're prepared to take the hardship with the stuff that you love, then eventually people throw in the towel and decide to pursue something a little bit more boring, really. So
something they refer to as more secure and safe.
Secure, safe. I mean, someone was saying to me when I started in my own business setup, And that was purely because no one actually offered me jobs when I was in my 20s. So it wasn't really that I was that brave. It was just that there was no option. But this friend of mine said the only reason why you want to run your own business is if your income far surpasses working for corporate, because working for corporate, you can still kind of do a bit less. No one's going to notice. You can take sick days. You can take leave days. If you add up all the potential for, not really stressing so much. And he said the only reason why you want to run your own business is because then you're making so much more. And I don't know. I mean, definitely the potential is there. It's massive, but there are months that you're definitely not making anywhere near. And I think also from what I see, a lot of us agents by nature a little bit too adventurous with our income. So, then you're like, okay, now I must just do it until pretty much the day I'm ready to kick the buckets,
Yeah.
So you better love it. That's why.
Yeah. No, I've literally from my side, in 2022, I had made a move to a legacy brand, and the amounts that I was earning didn't match up to my living expenses. And I actually got into a place that year where I was so broke. I mean, I had hundreds of thousands at the bank, and I eventually became homeless. I actually had to live in the backyard of my aunt. Luckily, she was kind enough to take me in. So I was living in a cottage for a few months even.
Okay, that's not quite homeless though, I know it sounds more dramatic.
No. No, I think it's depending on the way you think. But for me, that was the equivalent of being homeless. I've always been very comfortable. So, it was certainly not ideal. And it was a difficult time for me. And I think that's the stuff that people don't see. There's a lot of struggles that you go through as well, especially if you've been conditioned by the system to work in the corporate environment, because in the corporate environment, you perform tasks and you earn money. Industry, it's a very different game. So you have to learn how to become more conservative with your funds. You have to plan better. If I had planned better, I wouldn't have been in that position. I mean, that's really the bottom line of it. So yeah, it certainly has its challenges, but if you are passionate about it, that won't deter you. You'll carry on pushing until you come right.
Well, that's, and I mean, in all the training, that's all we keep repeating really is you just keep grinding, because there will be very dry periods, but if you keep grinding. But shout out to the aunts. I also have an aunt, and I think if I was heading for homelessness, my aunt's totally taking me in. I know it for a fact. I don't have to ask her. So good that we all have aunts like this.
It's amazing. I grew up in a household where my mom was a big advocate to being self-sufficient. So I never really imagined that family would show up for me like that. So it was so surprising when it happened. I mean, even with my divorce, it was the same thing. My aunt showed up again, and it was so emotional for me because you don't expect it. I was trying to figure things out myself. I had the intention of sleeping in my car. It came down to it. I didn't want to be a burden to other people, but yeah, family shows up when you least expect it. So shout out to them, 100%.
Look, I think sleeping in your car would have made for a lot more impactful story.
Better story.
Yeah. So maybe just do it for one night, just
let's retake that. Let's retake that part.
But well done to your aunt. She must be a lovely person like mine.
No, she is. Yeah, 100%. Have you in your career also had experiences like that where you've been super out?
Yeah, well, so I actually, my family is completely the opposite in a sense that in my culture in Bulgaria, you kind of live with the family 24/7.
Okay.
So you don't even have the luxury of being independent because everyone is in each other's pockets, and in my case, even the houses are next to each other and all that. So you kind of grow up actually very dependent. And then I hit a rebellious stage, and I came to South Africa literally as a bit of a middle finger gesture to the family at age 20. And it was a very rude awakening because there was absolutely no one here that I could lean to. So I was first living in a hostel, like everyone gets a room kind of thing. Working 2-3 shifts of waitressing per day, and slowly started saving money. But I had a friend at the time that was very good with his money, and literally middle of the month I'll borrow the rent, and then end of the month I'll pay. Then the next month, the money was kind of waiting for me because I kept doing it for months. So, but yeah, I didn't have absolutely anyone because at that point it was also about not telling the family that I've made a huge mistake. There was no, I was going back to Bulgaria with my tail between my legs. There was absolutely no way. So it went on for over 2 years, where it was every month not knowing if I can pay my rent, and 1 or 2 months not paying, and the landlord, having, some moments with me. But yeah, so it's literally been up against the wall since age 20. Yeah. But you know what? It all worked out fine. 100%. And I mean, I'm very grateful for it. I'm grateful I didn't end up sleeping in my car because I didn't have a car to sleep in. So it would have been worse. But, back in those days, it was junk mail and the adverts for granny flats. So, we'll be looking for a decent looking granny flat and, for years. And, but yeah, no, it's great because you literally learn to do everything. And you kind of start building self-confidence that you are quite capable. Unlike, sometimes I hear people go, but how do you do this? How do you do that? And I'm like, what do you mean? It's like so simple, but it's not. It's just that I've had to do everything. And, now it's gives you great confidence. It's actually great. I think it's fantastic. Same with the property, a lot of people that we show, first time buyers and all that, you realize where you started, 20 years, 30 years, whatever. And you realize how much, people are learning as they go. So I love it. Yeah. But I mean, moving from Joburg to Cape Town, is it true that whole thing that people say that Cape Town's cliquey and you can't find friends? Are you lonely? Do you have friends now?
The interesting thing is, because that was something I thought about a lot when I first came down here. Because in Johannesburg, I was very popular. Everyone liked to hang out with me. People would get upset if I came late. Not because there was a specific time we had to be there, but it was almost like they enjoyed having my company there. And then I came to Cape Town, and for the longest time, I just didn't have anyone. It was only friends that I had. The only friends I had were family. And I couldn't figure it out. It's like, is there something wrong with me? Has something changed in my demeanor? Why are people not responding to me? And I've sort of come to the conclusion that it's a cultural thing. It's not that the people are cliquey or rude here. It's just that the way that they engage is different to how we engage as people from Johannesburg. And the things we find funny is different to the things they find funny. And the way that they engage with new relationships is different to how we engage with new relationships. We'll just walk into someone in the shop that we haven't seen for a long time, invite them over, and genuinely want them to come over. In Cape Town, it's more of a formality. So you're being polite by saying, hey, we should grab a coffee sometime. But you'll notice there's never a date set by them. If you want that to happen, you have to physically go out and do it. So I certainly don't think they're cliquey. I think it is, although it's only 1,400 kilometers away from Joburg, I think it's definitely a cultural thing. I don't think it's that Cape Townians are rude or cliquey.
So have you got Cape Townian friends now? Or are you still trying for that coffee invite?
I would say that I have a handful, but I think a handful is better than having 2 hands full of bad ones. So I have one or two good Cape Townian friends, but you find that you sort of gravitate towards people from Johannesburg just because culturally you just get each other much better, which is why I've also really fitted into Langebaan so quickly, because most of the people who live here are immigrants from Johannesburg. So they share my humor, they share the way that I engage. So it's super easy and straightforward to build relationships here. Where in Cape Town, it's still a different story. I literally, if I count, I can only think of one Cape Townian friend now, but
That's bad.
yeah, let's call it two. Let's call it two, just so that I don't insult. And I have those two friends that we share, which are not Cape Townian technically, but now they are, I guess. So that's the closest.
No, they're true citizens of the world. That crowd there.
True.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. But he did, the hubby did convince me that we were into the botanical gardens 2 weeks ago, and he was quite proud of his paperwork that he's a resident here now, because I thought that they would roll on different rules for people who had moved in here and gotten residency when it comes to gate entry. You know, who you sometimes get special treatment if you're a South African with a green ID. So he qualified for that because they're residents. So it was interesting how proud he was as well. I think South Africa on the country and the people. And I think once they leave as well, that's when a lot of them are noticing that it's actually not so bad in South Africa. South Africa is actually quite special. And I think there are a lot of pros that outweigh the cons that we have in our country. So, yeah.
Oh, listen, I mean, I'm coming from Europe. I can list you pages of pros versus the cons, and vice versa. You know, for me, you know, that there's way too many cons for living in Europe, you know, but that's me, you know, but are you seeing a lot of Europeans? I guess our mutual friends are not actually Europeans, but they're coming from Europe at the moment.
Fair enough, yeah.
But where do you see people coming from in Cape Town and overall in the Cape? I mean, we talk Cape Town, but Langebaan, you know, generally the Western Cape.
Yeah, I was actually quite interested. I think the audience that watches this will kind of know the sort of demographic we have here, which is the Germans, the Dutch, and the English. There's a lot of those that come in here. But there has been a lot of American tourists that have started making their way in here the last few years. But interestingly, what has been the most interesting for me is how many of them are actually getting directed to the small towns. So the sort of big towns that I think most people would be drawn to or think that foreigners would go to would be your Stellenbosch, Franschhoek, Somerset West, Cape Town, Constantia, Atlantic Seaboard. That's sort of the places that people get marketed. But it turns out that the travel agencies are sharing the smaller towns as well, like River Castile as an example, which is part of the Swartland, it's also about an hour and a half out of Cape Town. And I found that out because I actually ran into a Swiss couple that were there. And I was just curious because it's so off the map. I mean, have you ever heard of River Castile?
No.
Yeah, well, there you go. So how do the foreigners find it? And it's just through the tour guides. The tour guides are giving them these locations. Even Langebaan, there are Dutch families that have lived here for the last 15 years, which is so interesting. And yeah, it seems to be a batch of a lot. I think there's a lot of interest in just because the exchange. The exchange is super attractive for foreigners, and I think a lot of the social media is also drawing attention to Cape Town as a hotspot. We had a famous American YouTuber, Ennis, who came here earlier this year, and I'm sure he must have garnered a lot of interest amongst his followers on what's happening in South Africa. And we're winning awards all the time. I mean, we're winning awards for the best city, best food. Sure. I mean, it's just, I don't know who the tourism people are who are marketing us, but they're doing a fantastic job.
So are you saying that tour guides are now starting to become also kind of a housing advisors? Because I mean, again, why are they coming up with those small cities, or are they coming up with the small cities or towns to give ideas of unusual, off the beaten track travel, and then the tourist loves it so much they buy?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what happens because, as you know, if you've done a cruise to the Mediterranean, okay, the chances are you're probably going to do the same stuff. So they obviously are keeping it fresh for the tourists and suggesting options and opportunities that are different to what they've had before in order to get them to sign up for those agreements or those what do you call them, specials that they have. So I think that's really what it is. And then those people do fall in love with those small towns and buy. And again, like I said, I think if you're looking globally, if you're buying a 10 million rand house in Cape Town, it's very affordable for a foreign buyer. It's not for 10 million for us as South Africans, it's the money. But for a foreigner who's earning in euro or pounds, it's super affordable. And I get frustrated when I see the Europeans come here and they post a little menu pages of the meals that we have here, and they're like, "Hey, everything's so cheap. Everything's so cheap here in South Africa." So yeah, but that is the nature of it. And I think if you put yourself in a position where you earn well, life is really good here. Life is incredibly fortunate, and we're very privileged to have the kind of life we have in South Africa.
No, absolutely. And I think it will ultimately increase the quality of life of everyone if more people see the value. I've definitely also seen over the last 2 years a lot of tourists that then end up saying, "I love it so much." I've seen a huge increase in social media influencers, interestingly from the US, talking about moving to South Africa. And some of them even have like whole YouTube pages where they, travel and they show different houses, even open houses to some of them, and then talking to their audience. So it's almost like, I don't know where the go-to destination is generally for the US or the German people traditionally, but these days it seems to be becoming South Africa, more so than other countries. But does this then outprice the market, or there's still not that many of them buying, that the market is still affordable for South Africans? That's now the interesting question, especially when I look at the Cape Town properties, because I consider myself to be in luxury real estate in Gauteng, but what we consider luxury compared to the prices we see in Cape Town is dramatically different. To sell a 20, 40, 50 million rand house here is like an event. But a 50 million rand house here compared to 200 million rand house in Cape Town, they're more or less the same in size. But now the already 50 is massive. How do we get to 200, or who gets to 200?
Well, that is interesting. I do think that Cape Town is en route to become out of price for most South Africans, because it's not just I think the pricing is being adjusted by foreigners and also the short-term rental market, because we've had so much rentals going on short-term. They have pushed prices up to a point where South Africans can't rent anymore, because now the long-term rental prices are super high, because those people want to have the luxury of the long-term tenant, but also the benefits of the short-term earnings. And actually I saw an article recently which was so interesting, because I thought that majority of the people who were buying here was for short-term letting, but in fact most of the short-term rentals in Cape Town seem to be run by people who are doing it on a rent-to-rent basis. So they're doing sublease agreements with the landlords in order to rent out those properties, and they then benefit, which is far smarter because you obviously don't have the liability of those properties. And yeah, so that is definitely a problem. I think the reason why they get away with those prices is just because, first of all, South Africa is a popular holiday destination. And secondly, again, if you compare what a 200 million rand home offers compared to, for instance, like Los Angeles, it's incomparable. I mean, we really have such amazing value for money when it comes in the luxury space if you look at it on a global platform. So I think that's really the kind of people that are buying those sort of properties. I do know of a property that was sold to a pharmaceutical entrepreneur who's a South African. Last year, they went through in Clifton, which was around the 100 million rand. But I haven't seen too many South Africans purchasing that level of property. A lot of them, if I look online and I do my research, a lot of them are foreign nationals that are purchasing those sort of super prime homes. I don't even like to call it super prime because super prime here, super prime, I mean, we're probably just below prime, but they are luxury homes for sure.
Oh, look, I mean, absolutely. But interesting what you say, because I was doing some research in waterfall equestrian the other day, just to understand, because that is pretty much one of the 2 or 3 top estates in Gauteng, and the perception is that the sales are in the 60s to 80s. But when I, looked at the reports, it wasn't so, and the sales were way lower than that, and a lot fewer than one would think. Every 2-3 months, a 60-70 million rand house sells it, and it's not the case. So possibly also almost like a media perception that you get because you're seeing all these beautiful photos and you're thinking these homes are selling constantly. Maybe it's not as much as that. But I mean, then you look at Val de Vie, that is still leading the top sales per square meter by the Cape as well. They have managed to do quite a lot of sales. Strangely for me, because it's a very odd location for such high-end sales.
Yeah. Look, I think they have a lot of benefits in lifestyle on that side, and I think it's only going to, and because of the level of safety that they enjoy there, that also makes it very attractive for South Africans, especially for people that are coming from Gauteng and the Pretoria region. So yeah, I do think a lot of these deals are being done in such a way to support the buyer's interests. So although a lot of properties will be marketed for high prices and then they look like they sell for this fraction of that, I think that the deals are being structured in such a way that they are presented in that way. Because I know of a property that was on the market in Cape Town for 300 million rand in Fresno. And it recently sold. It sold this year. And I had a look at what it said the selling price was. And it was 40 million rand. And there's no way that a seller who was looking for a sales value of 300, that was the guiding price. There's no way they would have accepted a 40 million rand deal. So there must have been something that had happened outside of that deal in order to make that make sense to the seller. So I wonder sometimes, do you think that might be the case as well on the estates there in Johannesburg?
I actually have no idea. Sometimes I actually wonder the opposite. Sometimes I see a house where I would have assumed the market value will be a lot lower. And then you hear that it's sold for full asking. And I mean, those are once off here and there. But there was, last year, there was a sale of a property for 55 million, which I would have valued at 35, 40 at the most. And I know it sounds, when we're talking 55, 35, it's like small numbers, but we're talking millions, So a 20 million above what the market indicates, with many other properties in a similar price range, that one could have chosen much cheaper. It made me wonder, and I've seen when I do the research, I do wonder why would someone pay such an amount of money when they could buy two adjacent. But then I guess also there when you've got that amount of funds, then you go a little bit more with an emotional purchase maybe, and you just buy what you want, not necessarily whether it is valued at that price. It's just what the person wants. So like I have sometimes struggled to understand how I can see value in a car above a certain price, but other people see the value. So in my opinion, that's kind of the same. But on your 300 million, I have no idea. I haven't seen that house, but you never know. I mean, I have seen deals go dramatically lower than the initial stage. And often what I find is with people, they start off with a very strong mindset of where they want to see the deal go, the owner. And they can, and I mean, we've had it, I'm sure you've experienced it as an agent as well, where an owner will say, don't even talk to me. Don't even think of coming with an offer below X amount. And then it's happened to me where as an agent, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to respect their wishes. And then 6 months or a year later, I hear they went to way below what their hard no was. And then I learned very, very quickly in my career as an estate agent that you have to always do a little check-in with the person, because the frame of mind when it was, this is the hard no, don't cross this line, was 6 months ago or 12 months ago. And interestingly, it's not always a distressed seller that might get to that point of taking so much less. I find sometimes it's, in fact, the opposite. It's someone that doesn't really lose money, or rather has so much money it's not a big deal, and they're like, I'm fed up, I don't want this property, I don't want the stress of the leaking roof, or I don't know, whatever. I'm now just imagining, but I have seen it with sellers where they literally take a fraction of the price just to clean the slate, have a new start, move on, or whatever stage of life they're in at the time. So I think maybe someone might have just been very persistent and scored big time and got the 300 million for 40. Who knows?
Geez, that's a major score, yeah. But I think also, bringing back to what you said earlier, I think that the perception is that a property is worth something because of what it's being marketed at. It's not perception is not based on sales values, on what those properties are transferring at price-wise. And that has always been the biggest battle for us as real estate agents, is to try and manage those expectations in order to help those people, because they think, we're trying to sell them super quick. That's why we're dropping the prices. It's not the case. If we drop the prices, we work on a commission that's based on percentages. If you get less, we get less. That's how it works out. So it's not in our best interest to sell it for less. If your house is worth 5 million and you think it's worth 10 million, of course I want to get it for you at 10 million. It makes sense for both of us. I want you to tell people about that. But people pay what they're prepared to pay. They're not prepared to pay what you feel the property is worth.
Yeah.
So that's the reality of it. I think if someone scored a 260 million rand discount on their home, I think they scored, that's miracle stuff. That's really quite special.
Unless the house was worth 40 to start with.
The thing is that there are so many cases where, especially I've noticed it here in the Western Cape, there's places where people will do that. They price their homes to those prices because of what they saw happening, and based on quality of those properties in order to achieve those levels, because elevation, as an example, obviously adds value. But if a house has got massive improvements in it, and I mean the finishes in the house, then you can justify paying more for it. But if you have very sort of low key, or even if it's an old house, it's Uncle Bob's house from 1940, and now he wants to sell it at the same price as a super fitted house that's going for 100 million. There's no way Uncle Bob is going to get 100 million for his dated house. I mean, we would love for Uncle Bob to get it, but let's get real. People are going to pay what they see value in. And I wouldn't see, and the buyer wouldn't see value in paying that.
So tell me, when Ines was in Cape Town, because I also saw that video, and I was wondering, what is the story on the street? First of all, was he paid, or did he come just to create content in a different country? Because I see him traveling a lot in other countries as well. First question. And second question is, did that house sell as a result?
So the house, first of all, did sell. And I don't know if it sold as a result of that, but I think you understand the power of an audience, probably more than most real estate agents. Oh, no, that's not fair to say. I think there are a lot of real estate agents who appreciate that. But I definitely see value in an audience selling a property. And so I definitely think it was a big cause of that. What Ines does in order to generate his revenue, I don't know. I suspect that he earns really good revenue just on his followers. So it's difficult to say. I haven't heard any rumors about that. So I don't think that is the case. I think he probably would have made a cut out of the sale if he was the introducing party. But that's as far as I know with regards to Ines.
No, it would just
shout out to Ines if he watches.
Yes, absolutely. Because we've learned a lot from his videos. His work is obviously amazing, and we've got lots to learn still. But what I was just curious from a point of view that we have now over 1,000 videos in. We are seeing quite a lot of people recognizing our agents as well as the properties, and literally walking into a property and just almost like mentally tick boxing, yes, yeah, that's what I saw online, and then buying. And when it comes to high-end properties, I'm convinced that it is not really a case of someone going on a property portal and typing 4-bedroom house in Fresno, 200 million. First of all, we know that the portals don't even go to that to that price range. They just go 15 million plus. And then you wonder what it is that captures people. Is social media so much stronger? I feel it, but I wonder if it is like that in Cape Town. Have you experienced it?
I do think that it is like, I think it's globally like that. Social media allows us to tell a story on a property. And I think that is what sells property. Property is, although it's often a very big investment for people, it's an emotional purchase. So if we strike a nerve through the message, that's going to get the job done. You don't need to overcomplicate it. You just need to tell a good story.
But interestingly, I was just thinking now, jumping back to our good old friends in Cape Town rentals. How long did it take you to find them a home? Long.
Longest time that I've ever taken to find someone something. It was a 4-month process where we had to contact literally every single agent in the southern suburb, or at least it was in the areas. We exhausted the opportunities there. We looked into the winelands, so Franschhoek, Baldevie was the place we looked at, Baldevie and Pearl Valley. And then we went over the mountain onto the other side of Table Mountain, and we were looking at Noordhoek. So it was expensive. It was an expensive search, and eventually time was coming to an end that we had before they had to find a place to live. So we were starting getting desperate. So we started looking into Airbnbs to see whether some of those people might be interested in a long-term lease on terms that worked for them. And luckily, we eventually struck it lucky, and we got a place which was really, really nice. I think they're super happy there. And so it was a difficult slug, but it was, I think, to me, that process really changed the way that I started doing real estate as well, because I started to realize that the value in working on high-end real estate, the value that comes from that is, besides monetary, there is an opportunity for you to really build relationships with people. And you slugging doing these million rand deals, like, respect to them. And I respect the sellers and the buyers and the agents who do it. I have no respect to them. The thing is that by doing that, it makes it extremely difficult for you to be able to support your lifestyle. If you're doing million rand deals in South Africa today, you have to do a substantial amount of them in order to pay your bills. And anyone who's in our industry knows how competitive it is. It's very difficult to get that many done in a month. I would imagine.
Okay, so mental barrier, what?
Yeah. So what I was saying was that
How many deals you have to do to survive with your
a million rand deal? Yeah,
the million rand deals, yes, many.
Yeah, you do. And so you don't really get an opportunity when you are selling 30 million rand deals to really build relationships with people, because you're just hustling so hard. And it's impossible. If you're in our industry, without support, it's impossible to manage those relationships. You can't keep all of them going. You can't build real relationships with those people. So that was an extremely interesting thing that I took from that. And that's all I want to do now. I don't want to do the high end because I make more money. I know I do, but I want to do it because it allows me the freedom to build the friendships that we all want as people. We're social creatures. That's what we want to do. That's where we see value. So that was the biggest takeaway from me. And going through that, it was, to me, it was very similar to being in university, where you are sitting in the dorm with your fellow students that are learning. And you going through those difficult times, you form a very tight bond with those people. And that's exactly what I felt with those friends of ours, is that hard slog of trying to find that something for them, the stress of trying to find that something for them, it actually brought us closer together. And yeah, it's probably one of my most cherished relationships that I've gained out of this industry. So thanks to you as well for sharing them with me.
Yeah, no, we actually, funny enough, we had a similar experience with them when they were first moving to Joburg, and we also, became friends, and many board games we played and all that. But 100%, because you're not under the pressure to just push someone into the conveyor belt and, close them, move to the next one, close this one, move to the next one. So yes, you do have time to grieve and listen to the person, attend to their needs, as well as then feel that satisfaction, like you said, of actually finding a friend, which on Saturday night I was at a birthday party, and it was people whose house I found a few years ago, and, now we're friends and we play paddle, we do all these things together. So absolutely, I think it's an absolute pleasure, and this is actually what, for me, has been the beauty of real estate. But if I was, like you said, in the position where you just have to push 10 rentals a month, 20 sales, whatever the case may be, different approach, different mindset. But also what I found on my side is also changing the mindset from take it all, with the legacy brands, and with some other brands that are coming up these days. All you hear is, what is the commission split? And I've completely changed my mindset. And one of the eye-opening moments for me was quite a few years ago, when I was still at a legacy brand on the so-called 100% com and top performer and all that. And I'm sitting and I'm listening at one of the meetings that they had. And they're talking about, how much commission every agent is making. And whilst they were carrying on, I was doing mental calculations for myself and my team to be the top performing team, what it has cost us for the year. And when I say what it's cost us, I'm not even putting any of the time, because we work 7 days pretty much, some of us. What I was looking at is, we are very open to working with other agents because we believe rather do the deal than chase, the no, not splitting with anyone. Then I looked at what are we paying in terms of the marketing in order to be that visible team and that high performing agent. So when I put all the marketing, the advertising, the video editing, everything together, plus all the sharing with other agents, I realized that on average, we're making between 25 and 30% net on any of the commission. And it was a very profound moment for me for two reasons. First of all, because, sometimes you almost have a guilt thing. People say, oh, you agents make so much money. And I don't believe that is the case. I believe the successful agents work similar to how we work. Yes, many agents get involved in one deal, and not just agents, administrators, marketing people, and all that. So ultimately, you're making a fraction of that amount. And in a sense, it almost made me feel good because I thought to myself, you know what? If 5 of us made something and then had many deals going, then that's 5 happy people versus me having that guilt thing of, oh, I'm just working for myself, which has never been the case. But what another profound thing for me is that there has to be a mindset shift in the industry where this thing of your commission split will be higher. Go for a high commission, high move agency because of the commission split. Completely wrong question to ask, or rather reason to move somewhere. And funny enough, yesterday I was driving and a different agency tried to cold call me as the homeowner of one of my properties to ask me if I want to sell my property. And I laughed and I said, look, you sound quite nice on the phone. We're hiring. And his first question was, what's your split? And I said, if you're a good agent, that should be the last question. Your question should be, what is my ability to expose you to the market and for you to be able to sell? Because if your split is 100%, but you don't sell a single house for the year, you've made 100% of nothing. So does it matter? 100% of zero. And so yeah, what you're saying, with the friends, and if you have an open mind and if you can just stop and slow down and breathe and just focus on getting the best for the party that you're working for, ultimately I think it's also rewarding. So you do also need to feed the soul. You can't just be grinding without feeling that you're doing something meaningful. And then the other thing for me was that way I feel that more of us do the job better than one of us keeping it all to myself, but actually then being that ruthless, crappy agent that everyone fears, pretending a house is better than it is, or whatever the case may be, just so I can push to the next deal.
Yeah. Yeah, that to me is also something that I just cannot tolerate anymore, is someone who behaves unethically in order to make a deal happen. I think there's so many real estate agents in our country that you actually are not forced to work with those people, because chances are someone else will get that piece of inventory and then you can work through someone else. So it's like social suicide. It's career suicide for you to stab a colleague real estate agent in the back or to work unethically with them. So I've seen a massive shift in the way that real estate works here in the Western Cape, where collaboration is becoming essential in order to serve buyers and sellers. Essential. You cannot possibly hold every piece of inventory, even as a legacy brand. You can't. I'm sorry. At some point, you're going to have to work with others. And I have noticed some legacy brands from smaller towns, they historically had done very well, but they were also forced to relook at how they did things, because they used to just keep their inventory and they wouldn't work with any other agency in the area. And that had to shift as well, because it was starting to have an effect on their business. And there are still the legacy brands that don't want to work with other people. I have had that experience this past week, actually. Having joined, I wanted to build some relationships with some of the key people that I felt are the kind of people I want to align myself with, that are people I admire. And I noticed the ones that are from the legacy brands, they still have really opened themselves up to working like that. And it might be office policies that sort of restrict that. I'm not exactly sure. Again, no judgment to them. I mean, like I said, I admire them. So I made contact with them. But I do see that this is how real estate is going. In order for us to really serve people, we have to work more and more together in order to get these properties across the line, especially if you're dealing in high end. You don't just pop it on P24 and see the buyers rolling in. And those, you have to do some networking, locally and globally, in order to move that stock.
Mm. And what is your vision for the Western Cape? Is it still going to be as mad busy as it has been? Because I noticed properties don't stay long. We're not talking about the 100 million, but on average, I think properties sell a lot faster than they do in Gauteng. Or is it just my perception?
So I know you said you want to keep this real, so you don't want to do too much research, but I did do some research. And from what I can tell, there has definitely been a decline in volume of sales. So the popular areas, so Joburg was, I don't know if it's still the case, but I know about a year ago, Joburg was the most searched area, although it's not actually technically a suburb. Joburg was the most searched when it came to immigrants looking to purchase in the Western Cape. And so there was a massive rise in sales, obviously, because of I think that the interest rates had a big part to play after 2020, being as low as they were. There was a massive increase over those 3 years where the sales, not just the values, but the volume had shot up into the sky. But there's definitely been a decline. There's definitely been a reduction in sales that have happened, although the median price is still rising. So, yeah, I think it's difficult because I don't know your market. I don't know how long the properties on average sit online, but they do sell here because people want to live in Cape. They do, but the affordability is shifting to a place where most South Africans cannot afford to live here anymore. And that's why a lot of people, when they decided to go to Joburg, a lot of them would look at places like Langebaan in the initial stages 4 years ago, because the properties are super affordable. Yeah, you could pick up properties for 500,000. You could pick up a piece of land in Langebaan. Now those pieces of land, if you can't find anything under $1 million. I have one that is here, but yeah, that's not an ideal location. So yeah, I think people are now moving up the West Coast. That's something that I've noticed, is that areas like St. Helena, Jacobsbaai, Paternoster, those are becoming more attractive now because of the entry price of those homes and what you can get. And it's still not that far away from the city, because you're only about an hour and a half out from Cape Town, and about an hour 40 to hour 50 minutes away from the Cape Town International Airport. So that's what I found. So with regards to turnaround time on sales, I think they are more attractive in the higher price ranges than Johannesburg. But I think that's also changed. From what I understand, there has also been an increase in interest in purchases again in Johannesburg this year, which might be worth looking into. Because I had heard that, I can't remember where I'd read it, but that was what I read or heard.
Definitely. I mean, we're seeing more sales in the higher end compared to previous years. You know, let's say to have done several 20 plus million rand sales in a year historically was something I didn't really experience up until last year. You know, one here and there, and then you celebrate and you're very excited and all that for a very long time. And since last year, it's kind of 20 is now kind of okay. When you're hitting the 30 plus, then now that is the excitement stage. But definitely, I mean, anything I would say 30 plus, you're looking at 2, 3, 4 years, 5 years. I see properties, interestingly, on the market for 10 years, in the 80 plus price range and still unsold. So what is that telling you? Is there even a market for that price? If nothing has sold.
What is the general national unity or the unity of parties? What sort of impact has that had from on the real estate market in Johannesburg?
I think this year was just a difficult year in general up until elections, but people were saying it's because of elections. I don't know that was necessarily the case. I think the industry almost contracted, or we felt it, that it was this holding of breath. And, then there was the US elections that people were worrying about. And, so people are always worried about something. I didn't see, what I did see, interestingly enough, within our company, but also speaking to other colleagues, is that the people in the more price sensitive ranges were holding. So the 3 to 5 million was more difficult to sell than because in the 20 million, the assumption is this person is not affected by the interest rate as much, whereas a 3 million rand person will be very badly affected by the interest rate going up or down, or if elections have a bad impact. So our experience was very bad until August. From August, a little bit better, but this year, the high end, the 20 plus, was on the increase. Not sure why, because it was all South Africans. People often ask, is it all the foreigners buying the expensive properties? No, it was in our experience, we had 1 or 2 foreigners, yes, but the majority, I would say 90%, was South Africans, the high end. But in general, I think next year will be better. And I see, just in terms of the difference, like you said, in the inventory and how fast it sells, anything up to 5 million, one is expecting to sell between 3 and 6 months. If it is not sold, it's not a matter then of the market being bad. It's a matter of the property being priced outside of what the market is willing to pay for that particular property and location. Of course, if you have a property priced at 6 million in an area where everything sells for 1, I explain to the owners, if I can buy 6 of your neighbors, I would rather buy 6 of your neighbors and not your house, because then I'll have 6 houses, for the same price. So it has to be within, in my experience, within 10 to 20% of your surrounding, of your immediate surrounds. So your 5 million up to 10 million, you're looking at a year in Gauteng, and that is anecdotal, because of course people can give me now examples how they took 1 day to sell something. I'm talking in.
Well, anyone who's listening to us is going to. Not everyone's going to agree with everything we say, because a lot of it is our own opinions and experiences.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily everyone's experiences. Yeah.
It's our experience and the office experience. That's it. In fact, I watched a reel the other day of an agent saying we are our own enemies by beating the drum how we keep selling houses in 1 day, because now the expectation is you just need to find that agent that sells in 1 day. The sellers don't realize that is not the norm. The norm is above 10 million, your house on average sells 12 to 24 months. That is the norm for Gauteng. And those 1 days was just a big combination of, the agent was already working with many of these owners, or was already working with that buyer for a long time. And this property just popped up and they matched it because they had the experience, they had the foresight, they could connect 2 and 2 together. And there was the element of luck as well, which let's not pretend there isn't an element of luck in a lot of work that anyone does. But yeah, I mean, we've done those one-day sales, but I have, and I'm not ashamed to say, I've got houses on my books in the very, very high price range for the last 5 years. And no, they have not sold yet. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a different market there. I think there was massive shrinking from what I saw from Cape Town and from being in Johannesburg. Because when I left just before the sale prices started to plummet in Johannesburg. And I saw a lot of the properties from 5 years ago are still in sectional titles and small freehold properties are still sitting around the same price point as they were 5 years ago, which was so interesting. Whereas Cape Town is a very different animal. I mean, as an example with Constantia, when it comes to rentals and sales, it's amazing how quickly those properties move, because using our mutual friends as an example, that was one of the big challenges, is that how do you secure something for them quick enough that makes sense for the landlord, because the landlord doesn't need to wait. Properties around the 100 million rand a month, 100,000 rand a month, those properties would fly off the shelves. It was like a day or two, and then the agents would remove them from the portals because they were being inundated with inquiries, if you can imagine that.
Yeah.
So
100,000
it's a different 100,000 a month flies off the shelf in Constantia. So inventory is a massive issue in Constantia, from sales and from rentals. I see colleagues of mine advertising on a regular basis, need properties in Constantia. We have multiple buyers because there's just not enough inventory. And those aren't affordable properties. I mean, we're talking properties that are north of 10 million, using that as sort of the guideline. And so those properties don't sit for a year. Those properties go very quickly. If they're decent, if they're nice homes, they go very quickly. It's not, there's no waiting game on those.
On the 100,000. Okay, so you're definitely in a very exciting market. I can't actually wait to get deeper into it.
We are,
yes.
You and I, we are Luxlev
Yes.
and JP. Oh.
Yes. No, that is super cool. It's actually so funny because you're talking about that 100,000 struggle that you couldn't find. I recently assisted a family, and their budget was 30. And we had a similar struggle in midstream, but that's just an interesting change in perspective, because midstream is one of the top estates in the country, exceptionally also hot properties for rent. But the struggle was with that is just a comparison. The people are looking for 30,000, not necessarily 100. Yeah. And we also resolved we advertised high and low, and the property we ended up renting was an owner selling and struggling to sell. That we convinced to rather rent them. But yeah, so us going into Cape Town, we basically tripling the amount of the costs of the property, whether it's for rent or for sale. You're looking at more or less triple, anecdotally.
Yes, 100%. No, you're quite right. So I have to quickly just tell you that we soon run out of time. Yeah,
perfect.
We're running out of time.
Well, listen, this was awesome. There's going to be many talks.
That was.
Many more talks like this. So that's actually super exciting. I want to come and check out all these beautiful houses.
I was actually going to ask you, when are you coming to visit?
I think when is the worst? When is the 4 seasons in a day thing over? Because that's one thing I can't. My anxiety doesn't cope with 4 seasons in a day. So if you can tell me which month I can come for 2 seasons in a day, then I'm in it.
Wow, sure. I mean, the mother city is unpredictable. I cannot tell you. We'll see that the weather is going to be fabulous tomorrow, and then the next day it's 100% rain coverage. So. You're going to have to come when it suits you, I think.
I think very soon. We're going to aim for March latest. Yeah, we're going to do a series of videos. I can't wait, actually.
Okay, sounds good.
All righty. Have a great day.
It's been fun. Yeah.
Same.
You too.
Okay, cheers.
Okay.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.